This video is all about the spoken word, specifically diction, pace, pitch, and volume, which is something that most people engaged in casual conversations just don't think about, but do sometimes utilize subconsciously. I mean, having a conversation with just one other person is much easier than having a conversation with a room full of people. In this situation, you can easily mirror the other person's tone, body language, speech, and vocabulary patterns, basically adapting to the other person as necessary to meet the situation. And many people do this naturally, without even thinking about it. Here, that is much, much harder to do, but it's not impossible either. It just requires more research and practice. This lesson is about how to control the spoken word to accommodate larger audiences' needs and attention. And we'll be focusing on 4 key aspects of the spoken word, most namely diction, which refers to the style or choice of words of the speaker, pace, or how quickly or slowly the presenter speaks, pitch, which refers to the musical rise and fall of the voice, and, of course, volume, which simply refers to how loud or soft the presenter is speaking at any given moment. For diction, in order to appropriately gauge how to effectively choose your words, it might be best to do a little research for who exactly you will be talking to in terms of your general audience. Then, you want to match your vocabulary to meet their background and education level. You don't want to talk too far over their heads, intimidating them, or too far below, insulting their intelligence. Also, no matter the audience, it's always best to avoid jargon and acronyms, as these just tend to confuse audiences. For pacing, your speech, you always want to be careful to not talk too fast or too slowly. There's no one correct speed. It will change depending on the content and the moment. And you'll also want to try to vary speed from time to time to keep things interesting. But there is one thing I've noticed for a lot of new public speakers. Many of them get really nervous and begin to talk really fast as a result. So much so that the audience can't understand what they are saying. And then their nervousness really starts to show. So the first thing I usually tell newbies is to slow down and to worry about varying their speed later. After they've had a bit more practice in front of their audiences, then they can begin to get a little more nuanced with their pacing. Pitch is a really important aspect of speech in terms of what is going to make you sound perhaps the most human out of all points we've listed so far. And just like pacing, you will want to vary your pitch over the course of your presentation. If you don't, you'll run the risk of sounding monotone. But overall, everyone tends to speak with too high a pitch when they present, and studies have shown that people prefer presenters with lower pitched voices, thinking that they carry more authority. And finally, you'll want to avoid the dreaded uptalk, or ending a sentence like it is a question with a higher pitch at the end. Now, this is a cultural difference. In some regions of the world, it is acceptable. But in the United States, for example, uptalk is not acceptable in public speaking situations unless you are asking a question. Otherwise, it can make the speaker sound uneducated or unsure of what they are presenting. And the last aspect of the spoken word to watch out for is your volume when presenting. And just like pace and pitch, this too, in general, you will want to vary over the course of your presentation, but only to a slight degree. You still want to be heard, so don't go so quiet in places that you won't be. And you may have heard this phrase, speak or present to the back of the room. This is what that phrase is really talking about, the volume of your voice. Just don't make the mistake of thinking that speaking loudly is the same as shouting either. The two are quite different. Speaking loudly has more to do with projecting your voice, so do practice good posture and breathe through your diaphragm. Now, you don't want to breathe through your chest, but through your belly, using those lower muscles to take a full, deep breath to apply more slow, gradual, and controlled force behind your words. And that will help to create a fuller, more controlled volume when presenting. That, plus the areas I mentioned earlier, will all help to establish a more professional tone and sound in any speaking environment.